The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, welcome to the weekly Noyantis Usergroup meeting. Today is Monday the 11th of February. Myself and John are your presenters. As always, as we say each week, if you've got any questions and queries or ideas or problems, then feel free to raise your hand. We've got a hand up already, that's good. Raise your hand and we'll get the microphones opened and we'll talk through what we need to talk through. So, before we get into the questions, we'll just cover quickly some updates. One was there was an update last week. I forget which day. I think it was Thursday, something like that. Where are we? It was the 8th. What was that? It was Friday. There was an update to the report control. I would suggest people download and apply the latest as always. There was a number of updates in that. We have covered some on the previous user group meetings, but they are this particular update we are going to cover in a Friday webinar coming up in March. Some of the functionality and other functionality what's going in there, but this really covered the things like the related record. So you can have a report control quickly. Open an application to show you what I mean by it and how you would use it. And that, let's go for that one. So if you was manually loading a report control, or if you're using data bind for that matter, or a list enhancer, if you're using a browse enhancer, then the record would automatically be in sync because it's enhancing nothing more than a Clarion browse, a Clarion list. But if you're not using that and you're using basically loading it yourself or data bind or a queue enhance or anything like that, then what you want to do is really tie in the record that you've got active on screen back to a physical record in your database. So the idea behind that, say for example in here, this is a data bind application. We'll quickly get some other ones in here. So yeah, Dr. 11111. We get the idea. And Miss 22222. Now, this, as I say, is data bind. Could be manually loaded. But what I want to do is as I'm going up and down here, and especially if I double click on one, so I double click on one there, I want it to naturally be on that record. All the things you really take for granted in a Clarion browse, really, I want that to automatically work for us. The changes which have just been applied, if we stick with that staff, for example, are really related to the changes really on the data source. There's some others as well which are well covered. But not in any great detail here. We're going to cover them on a future one, and we have covered them in previous webinars on the weekly ones. But to take advantage of this, forget the data bind and so on. There's some enhancements to that, but it's this related record which will be available on the data source. So you can say, okay, got my report control. I want it to be linked to a record within the staff table. I'm going to use that key. And that could be a multi-part key. So the elements, basically, this is just a single auto-numbered key. So I want to say, okay, the staff ID is basically it's a column ID, it's a row ID, it's other, and so on. But basically the row ID that would be naturally used throughout the report control is that field. So that's the table, the column, or the file and the key, depending on your preference. There's the elements, and if you're going to get a unique value back, it's going to be placed, as in inserting a new record, it's going to be placed in that field. So that would allow the syncing between your loaded report control. Remember, this could be loaded by any mechanism you like. Your loaded report control contents and whichever table you want to tie it to as like the primary table, the driving factor behind that report control. And the other changes are to do with calling of an update procedure and or print procedure and or view procedure, depending on what buttons you're using. Because now within the control template, you now have obviously you had a report control to your screen, and we've got these insert, change, delete buttons, but these aren't Clarion insert, change, delete buttons or update buttons. They're ours. So basically you choose the report control update buttons, and this is basically where the template settings will kick in. So the synchronizing will be done for you automatically, and then the calling of the forms. And if you insert, the refreshing of the report control will all be called automatically for you. So you don't have any embed code. You can just place those buttons on the screen and then set the attributes. So you can say it's linked to that report control, because of course you could have many, and some particular options. You want it on the right click, you want to disable when there's no records, all the usual things. So there are others in there, but that was released on Friday. So I would encourage people to switch to using that. Lots of good stuff in there. In fact, lots of really good stuff in there for you. Was there any other updates? On the 5th, yes, actually, thinking about it, last Tuesday there was an update to the Chilkat wrapper as well. So just trying to think on the Chilkat wrapper. The Chilkat wrapper changes was to do with Quickbooks, the Quickbooks Online, I should say, sorry. And there was 2 new methods added to it. So if I quickly open that example. So I'm just going to, that's just a reminder to tell me that I've got my license compiled in. Go to Quickbooks, I'll connect. Got my OAuth 2 screen here. Should log in. Choose a company that, because I've got some various test companies. Okay, I'm connected. Going to leave that on there a second, because we'll come to that in a second. But yes, I'm connected. So the new things you've got available to you, which have just been added, are payments and payment methods. So for example, we'll download, and I've got 4 payment methods in my QuickBooks test data. And you can see I've been playing about with a particular description there. But yes, you've got those and you've got payments. Of course, you can insert, change, delete these and so on, as you would expect. So we'll change this. It's sync token free at the moment. I shall just put that back to its proper name. And you can see that's updated. Sync token has now gone to 4, which you would expect. So that's the payment methods, and you've got the actual payments themselves. So you can bring these, here's one I've added, so I can see, yes, it's got its IDs and so on, linked to a particular customer with a payment method. You can give it a number, obviously, give it an amount, and then I've got actually linked against 2 different transactions and so on. So this is a £21.50, and I've got £21 of it allocated. So you can allocate as well. So you can download and update payments and allocate to other transactions should you want to. So they were the changes to the Chilkat, which was last week. Okay, so they're released. Chilkat 1.13 works actually commenced at 1.14 now to add a new task class actually, but more on that later. So 1.13 is on general release, and report control, I think it was 407, was it 408? 407 was released on Friday. So since last Monday, there's been two releases for you to make use of. Okay, the next one, before we get into questions, is really related to the calendar. Now, it's a new feature. It's not quite released. Well, it's not released. It's not quite finished, but it is something that might be of interest to you. And just to quickly show you what these are, just go into my example application. And I know one of the users here actually attending now wants to make use of it. Now, basically, The idea behind it is we want to make use of, for example, here we've got our staff list. Oh, there, yep. So I've got myself. I think I've got an appointment book enabled. So there's mine. Okay. Now you could have a scenario where you have different, we call them rotors, a lot of people call them rosters, but basically working patterns. So for example, user A, and we'll say myself there, Andy Wilton, we'll say in this application, we do it a lot more detailed as well. But just for example, in here, we could say, okay, starting the 1st of February, okay, I'm going to say we have basically 2 parts to a roster. And it runs basically, sorry, I have some debug, ignore that. It runs 2 parts. 1 week, week 1, we might work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 9 till 5. Something like that. And then week 2, we work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning. But we work slightly less hours. So 10 till 4. I mean, these are hours we all wish we could only work. It's quite the opposite, isn't it? We all do a lot more. But you get the idea. So 1 week I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The next week I work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning. And then back to week 1. Back to part 1, part 2, part 1, part 2. That's from that particular date onwards. So we can get the roster into the system. What we'd like to do is then paint this. So we know that the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week should be okay there, but I don't work Thursday, Friday and Saturday. So we want to signify in this calendar a way of showing that I don't work. We don't want necessarily, you might want them to still be able to book something into that time should they wish, but equally you might just want to block them from doing that. Well, this is where the new changes come into play. So we've added, I'll just bring at the moment because it's literally in development. We've added 2 new queues to the particular system with all the methods that go around we would expect for them. And basically, we have what you call some status definitions and some time statuses. So I won't go into too much detail here because we're supposed to be covering questions. But the idea behind this is we could have some particular status definitions. For example, the system automatically adds 3 for you when it initializes. It creates a definition of, let me just try this. Not that, sorry. It automatically adds 3 statuses of working hours, non-working hours, and a break. So for example, go back to our example, we wouldn't add this as working because the default is working, but we would add on this particular week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday as non-working, midnight to midnight, because I don't work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I wish, but so that would be coloured non-working. On the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I might want a lunch break, a 30-minute lunch break at 12 till 12:30. So you want this to be coloured and so on. So I'm just doing the colourings bit now. But the idea is that you could create your own statuses and it creates 3 for you automatically, but you can do as many as you like. And there's methods for this. For example, the new methods are add status definition. Got an add time status, and you've got a delete status definition as well, as you would expect. But basically, you would add the status definition, and there needs to be an action in there as well to say if someone tries to book into if a particular time slot has a status against it, do you want to allow it, warn, or disallow it? That's the idea behind it. So just need to put that in. Don't worry about that. So for example, back to our scenario, this would be allowed as normal. The Thursday, Friday, we might display a warning to say it's coloured. So we'd have it coloured in non-working time, but you might want to put a warning up saying, okay, we'll allow you to still book this, but warn the user that you shouldn't really be booking in this because Andy doesn't work. And on the Saturday, we could actually block it to say, definitely don't allow that, and so on. All of these different statuses, entirely flexible to yourself. So there will be a full working example added to the example app. The other part of it, obviously that's the status definitions. The next bit, which is the function I'm calling time status, is where you actually add these per schedule for a date and a status. And we can see it's a dimension of 1440, which is the number of minutes in a day. So the idea being, back to our example, let's say we wanted to put a status of break here, 12 till 12:30 for that date. I would have in my loading, I'd load the events, and that's slightly changed. I'll show you in a sec. I would load my events and I would load my time statuses to say, okay, on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I take a break between 12 and 12:30. You put them into the, you call the methods in the loading, and the calendar will do the rest. So it will do the colouring, it will do the blocking if it needs to block, and so on and so forth. So it all works down on what you call time slots. And a slot is basically a minute, if you will. So if I were to double click there, and it did have a status against it of, block the time here or warn, then one, it would be coloured differently, whichever colour you wanted, and two, if I did double click it, before any kind of automated update would appear, it would if it was set to warn, it would display a warning and allow you to continue, or it would block and stop you from continuing. So, and all of that will be taken care of you automatically for you. So that's a new facility what's coming in called time status. Any questions or feedback or idea on that before we actually get into this week's questions? Nope. That's good. Okay.
Looks awesome to me. That's my feedback.
Yeah, it should. I mean, genuinely, we use this both in the system, which you can see in development here, but historically, I've done practice management systems for 10 years prior to going for Noyantis full time on my own, which is probably 18 months now. But prior to that, 10, 11 years, I was doing practice management systems, mainly for dental. But you can imagine for a dentist, they would have numerous staff members. So let's just tell you what, well, don't really matter. You'd have numerous staff members. You would have different working hours. You would have different lunch breaks. So the idea is that you can visually look at the calendar and see straight away what's available. We can all see if we've got an event booked. I bet I've got no data in here. Yeah. Just get some data in. Typical. And the client form isn't done, so you really will have to ignore this a second. I'll never make a salesman, will I? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've got default head office, client 1, procedure. We'll say it's just an examination. Default of 15 minutes with a colour of examinations. Okay, don't particularly mind that. Yeah, okay. So we can all put particular. You can see straight from there you've got a booking there, and you might have, and we'll just do the same again here. Yeah, we've got, see, we can see what time is available. So we've got some time here, but you imagine a very busy appointment system. You really wouldn't be able to see much there. And then you've got your colourings of the breaks. And for the dentist, what the dentist would normally do is reserve maybe the first 15 minutes. So here, not to block people from putting time on there, but just to indicate that really you should be reserving this for people who've got emergencies, people who've got toothache overnight, or they've cracked their teeth overnight, and they do a walk-in, or they phone in and say, I need an appointment straight away. So they try and guide their staff to say, at least try and keep this for walk-ins, because you're always going to get that in our industry and that type of thing. So this is where the time status will come in for you. You'll literally just have to an embed point, like you've got load records. It's actually now just been changed to load events. Now you've got that embed point. You've also got load time status. That would automatically be called when it needs data. All you do is just call the methods in there, add time status, the schedule, which is the person, start and end time, date, and the date and the start and end time, and the rest of it will be taken care of for you. You won't have to do any work. So that's the idea behind it. Michael's just asking. It was Michael actually pushed for this, so can I just open Michael's microphone? Hi, Michael.
Hello, Andy.
Hi. Yes. Does that make sense? The time status?
Yes. When we get this update?
When?
To the calendar.
It will be. You'll have it by next week. It'll be on general release by next week. There's two parts to it, obviously. There is the loading of the data, and then the blocking and so on and so forth of appointments, and then there's the updating the example application. From a template point of view and a class point of view, it is a good 75, if not 80% complete. So if I was to bring this in here, we can see some of the there are some changes. There's where we used to have file load records. In fact, I should really mention this, but I was going to mention it when we release it. We've renamed some methods, but don't worry, none of your code will be broken. They will all continue to work as normal. Okay, so you currently have the embed points, file load records, file insert. We've renamed these to be data because we're doing some changes to the overall suite. So when it wants data from the report control, that's got the new data one. So data load and data insert record. So we're going to go through and change the others. So these will be data. And when it wants to do a save and restore, for example, command bars and task panel, then they will be save and restore, and the same. And that's because, say for example, the report control can have where it needs to load data, and it also needs to do save and restore. So just having one method called file doesn't really help you. So now they're going to be quite obvious what they are: data and save and restore. For the calendar, all these have been renamed, but all the old code is in there. So I've just opened this, and you can see it used to be in file delete record, and it's brought it across. It's just put it into an embed point saying obsolete. What really should happen is that should be placed into that one. But that's really entirely up to yourself. You don't have to do it. Your code will continue to work as normal. It's just I've just brought in the old ones. It's the way the template language works. And then you can see here from a load, you've got the load events, which used to be the file load records, and you've actually got, but it's not in this physically on screen, but it is here. You've got one called data, you've got load events, and you've got load time status. So all you would do is in the embed point, just like you do your loading records with a start and end date, you would load time status, start and end date, and that's it. Very, very simple. And the rest of it will be taken care of for you automatically.
Yes, okay.
But yes, you can see, apart from the trapping of, you double clicking on a time and if there was a status there, the colouring and the optionally blocking or putting a message up is, from a class point of view, really all what's left. So the class and the template will actually be ready within the next couple of days. Just got to do the example application and get it released.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's hopefully, obviously give feedback on it, but you should find it of use. That's the idea. So, okie dokie. Now, we had a question. We had a hand up from Stan, but Stan's indicating he's offline. I don't know who he's got. Oh, no, He's got two people in there. So let me open the microphone. Hi, Stan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's see. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, that's good. That works.
Yeah, I had to reboot my computer.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, the problem I'm having is I can't see the customers coming out of the queue in its
Oh, this is the
full
Chilkat.
syntax to QuickBooks.
Okay.
Because if you have a customer, or a class, you can have a master and a sub.
Okay. Let me just bring down what.
And I can't see how that's.
Okay, so from
You pull it out to where it only shows the sub. It'll also show the master in there, but it doesn't show the relation between the two.
Okay. Let's just take one quick look. Well, we've just done a download, so if we have a look at the query, we'll actually get the content here. So we can see, I don't know on this data, just let me open up the demo app, the QuickBooks demo, so we can actually see how it's, hanging together and see if we can actually set one. So it won't be a second, just going to try and go into that sandbox company. And yeah, we're in there. Okay, so here's the sandbox company. Okay, they've got one we can see. That looks like it's got, are they sub-companies? Is that what we're looking at?
Right, that should be one right there.
Okay, so Cafes Consulting.
You can verify by going into that employee party and making sure that it lists.
Okay, it's a sub-customer of Cafes.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's have a look at where. Do you know what? I'm actually going to use, I don't know if it'll help us actually. Oh. Do you know what? It's going to be easier for me to just put it in here and have a quick look. So there was a Cafes Consulting Company. Okay, so we can see that record. And just trying to see its ID. Oh, ID 4. Yep, okay. Yep, got that. And what was the name of the sub one?
Quan
yeah.
Employee
Party 2014. Okay. Fully qualified.
There it is.
Party 2014. Okay, yeah, so we can see that ID 63.
You see the colon in between the company and Quan.
Parent.
That's what I was trying to figure out, because you strip it when it displays on the screen.
Okay, well, you would want to go on the parent reference. So you got basically the parent reference would be 4. Okay, so just let me we'll put some indicators on that so we can see, and we've got our name there so we can see that. So let's find the other cafes. So we can see we've got Cafes Consulting, and we'll have a look at that, and we can see its ID is 4 there. And its parent, I don't think it's actually got a parent, that one, which it isn't, it's its own.
No, it wouldn't.
It is, yep. So then we look, there's another Cafes, of course. Now that's our Cafes, and we know this is a sub. It's got a parent reference, and the parent is 4. This happens to be ID 63. but its parent is 4, and there was another CAFES Retreat 2014. I think that was another one. That's got a ID of 61, but again, it's
I see.
linkage.
I see how they're doing this now.
Yeah.
They're doing it with their ID reference numbers instead of their name like they used to in the desktop program.
Yes, definitely. If we was to have a look at, let's do that invoice, the payment, which I mentioned earlier. Okay. We do a download of payment, and we can see this Noyantis Pay. Now, remember, this is only a rough and ready test app to allow you to accomplish, what you need to do. So we go into this, and we can see its ID. The sync token is literally the revision number of that. So, for example, and these are the golden rules for anybody else watching, maybe on catch up and so on. We can see its true ID of business card, and it's the same for customers, employees, invoices, everything. This is how QuickBooks Online links together, and a lot of other online things do as well. Google, they don't call it a sync token, they call it an e-tag, but it's exactly the same. It's nothing more than a revision indicator. So we've got this here. It's 3 and revision 4, call it. We'll change it. We'll call it business card ABC. Its ID will never change, but its revision has. And the only reason they have that is to stop, just in case I'm online and I've changed it online. I've got an old copy of the record in my buffer here. Then the business logic would kick in, and it would say you can't change it because somebody else in the world has changed it elsewhere. So that's why you would have it. So from a storage point of view in your tables, you would want to store both. But mainly from a linkage point of view, you would link on just the ID. So bearing that in mind, if I were to go into the customers,
that explains so much about why you use weird all the ID numbers in your journal entry.
Yeah, it's because basically I'm replicating. So the idea is, if you were to look at their API guide, and okay, you're getting such and such a message. Why am I getting that? And it's a business logic failure. Why am I getting that? You could look it up, and it would tell you about the linkage. And the idea is that you can, I try and follow do the same with the Kojak stuff. I try and follow theirs as much as you can do, because when you're looking up particular information off them, at least we're going to relate in the approach, if not the syntax. So we've got a Noyantis customer here called Noyantis Demo 68, number 68. I'll go to that pair. Keep coming out there. I'll go to the payments. We've got a payment in there. Yep, that's good. It's against customer 68, which we know is Noyantis. Brilliant. And then we've got 2 line numbers where it's been allocated against. £14 has been allocated against an invoice with an ID of 211, and £7 against an invoice of 183. So 211 and 183. Let's have a quick look here. And we've got 211, and there it is. Total amount £18 and 183. And on them, there should be 0 outstanding on them because they are allocated. And if we were to look at that, so now we get to see the linkage, and it's that approach for the whole of the, as I say, the QuickBooks. And I mentioned Google. We'll just have a quick look. But if I was to bring them down, you'll see on. Let's just open an appointment. It really doesn't matter. You will have an ID, and then we'll have an e-tag. That is nothing more. It doesn't increment one at a time like QuickBooks. The revision goes to 1, 2, 3, and so on. It just, I don't know if they're using some kind of numbering or a timestamp or whatever, but basically the e-tag will change. So if you need to go and update a record, it will want you to have both of those. If you're deleting a record, it will want both of those. And it's just a way of ensuring that you are basically wanting to delete or modify the latest revision, if you will, of that record. It can check its back end, and just in case somebody else has changed it, if it has, the e-tag would be different or the sync token would be different, and it can tell you accordingly. If they do match, you are the master of it. You can go and change it accordingly.
Perfect.
So, interestingly, The zero actually, my test account's expired. I'll just have to restart it. But basically, zero don't work on that kind of system. They all have an ID, but they don't work on a revision. I'm not quite sure how they do it on the back end, if you want the truth. But they're about the only one what don't do. The rest all do work on a similar type approach. So we can see here there should be an ID somewhere, yeah, so on and so forth. And then you can see that's a parent folder of, and you would have an ID there. So it's a kind of common approach. If you're going into any kind of APIs, you'd be wanting to go down that approach. Okay, we got I think John had a question, but it was on email rather than. Stan, is that okay? Have we got make sense of that?
I'm good.
Yep.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so John had a question. I don't think he's got he's self-muted, but you John, you can open the mic.
I'm here.
Oh,
aren't I?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just go to webinars telling me that you're muted. So
Really?
Yeah, so you're doing very good.
Ridiculous. Okay, I just sent you a Skype.
Sorry, not you, John. You're there. No, sorry, John Farmer. I had a question on, but we'll come to you in a second. You're on pop free question. No, John had a question regarding. Just let me find the email. Might as well, while he's here. I will quickly just find the question, and hopefully we can help John out. I think it was more of an approach. So he's looking for some advice on design for an application to interface in QuickBooks. Build an application. Original design was going to handle basic accounts, so yeah, general ledger. Let me move that. I can't see for the GoToWebinar windows. Okay, so John wants to interface with QuickBooks and so on and so forth. And he's using the Chilkat wrapper. That's good. Wants to interface into general ledger, seeking advice on typical flow and control of a Clarion app into QuickBooks. In your customer apps, because we do a lot of this in a couple of customer apps now actually, do you write CW code to record against journal entries in QuickBooks in a real time, or maybe write them to a table to be written to QuickBooks in a batch? Where do your journal transactions persist if QuickBooks connection is not active? Okay, cracking question. In the larger of the implementations, then it's actually done. And I should really ask if I can demonstrate it at some time. I won't demonstrate it now because it's not my property, it's the customer's property. But the general approach will be fine to discuss. So the way they wanted their system to work was basically on like a synchronizer. Now remember, they wanted to not just talk to QuickBooks, they want to talk to a few different accounting systems. So they've got their application. Various different places will change things in QuickBooks, like currencies, general ledger, accounts, customers, invoices, credit notes, vendors, invoices, credit notes, same all the things you would expect. From a desktop application wanting to synchronize to an online account. So because this wanted to talk to more than one type of accounting system to give them a maximum flexibility, then what we did there is when a record's updated, let's go over a very simple one, general ledger accounts, they have just changed the description, or maybe they've just inserted one. Then what would happen is at the trigger point of that record changing, it would create a job, if you will. Let's just say let's say we are updating the description of a general ledger account in the local system. Then what it would do is in the trigger of the update, it would create a job. There's some information around the job saying what type of job it is. General ledger. What action is it? It's an update. And what ID, and so basically the content of the update. So the ID, the sync token. If you use a QuickBooks one, for example, we'll go with accounts. So they was changing the description of, say, that one. Then they would in the content, it would have the ID and the sync token that's got to be changed. So they would be stored on the record within their local application. And of course, other bits of information like the name and other pertinent stuff that you want to change at that time. You would create a job, contain the header information about the job, as I say, what type of job is it and what action and so on, and then the actual raw content of the job. So you're changing this ID, this sync token with this name, and basically the other bits and pieces that you need to do. That job would be picked up by a service that is running on the network, and that service looks for jobs coming in, finds it. They happen to be stored in little JSON files, but they don't have to be that. You could store these as in basically just maybe a TPS table or a SQL table, where you're just really just reading the next job to do, if you will. In this system, we wanted a bit of traceability so we could actually see what the things were and save them off as little files. And it also helps in some testing when I want to just put a job in the queue, so to speak. So I just create a little JSON file and drop it into a folder, and the synchronizer picks it up. So it would pick up the job, see its content, and do the synchronizing to whichever accounting system it's being configured to talk to. So if it's QuickBooks, it would go and talk to QuickBooks using the QuickBooks class and update accordingly. If it's Xero, then it uses a Xero class and talks accordingly. If it's both, I can't see why anybody would ever want to have two accounting systems, but if they did, it would pick up and do the jobs accordingly to both accounting systems. The return of that, let's say it's been changed externally, so they have a thing where basically they've set in the config. The synchronizer is to check for any changes remotely every 5 minutes for the general ledgers and every minute for invoices and payments. So they really want the finances to be really up to date, but they're not bothered about a description of a general ledger account. It's kind of irrelevant. Once a day would be sufficient for that, let alone every 5 minutes. But that type of thing. So the synchronizer looks and says, okay, the time is now passed for me to go and do this next, inward job, if you will. Go and find bring down the latest descriptions, so on and so forth, bring them in, and go and update the tables accordingly. So it brings in this account. Let's say it brings in that one. It's just been changed up on QuickBooks. Brings in that. It attempts to find a local record which has got an external ID of 14 and a sync token of 1 in the general ledger account, in your local general ledger accounts table. Finds it and updates it accordingly. So basically, that's the flow of the design. Data going out from the system on a jobs basis. So you write a job, the synchronizer should see it immediately and go up. If the synchronizer isn't running, let's say you've got no comms, or for some reason your server isn't running, then when it kicks into life, it would see the jobs in the correct order and process them accordingly in the correct order. So synchronizer from an outward job point of view would see it as soon as it's placed there and action it accordingly. So the outward jobs really go almost instantaneously, except it's on a jobs basis. Inward wise, they have to be done on a timer, because QuickBooks, I don't think, mind you polling their servers, quite often, as in very often. QuickBooks, Xero do put daily limits on the API calls that you can do. I think it's something like, they might have increased it, but it used to be something like 5,000 calls per day was your maximum limit. So of course you wouldn't want it to go every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds, right, go and bring down the latest descriptions, now do it again, because you would go through your daily limit in no time. So from an inwards point of view, you would want to maybe design your system accordingly to say, okay, bring these in every so often, bring the others in more often, that kind of thing. That's one scenario. We've done that for a customer, works really well, genuinely works really well. The other one is, I know of another customer who do want it real time. So they are in their application, There is no synchronizer or anything like that. They let's say that same scenario, the general ledger account, they change the description, they press OK, and in the code of the OK, could be in a trigger, of course, but in the basically the actioned code of that OK, you try and connect to Chilkat, you perform connect to QuickBooks, you perform the update, and boy, truly what you should do is connect, download the latest revision of that ID. So for example, it could be that one. What happens here if I was to do change is it re-downloads just in case it's been changed externally. For example, if I go to customers, we'll say Noyantis 6v6.1, so its sync token is 36. I'm going to go into QuickBooks Online here. I'm going to go down to my Noyantis v61 there. I'm going to change its description, its name, sorry. I'm going to call it 6.2. Save. At that point there, that's out of date. It's not 36 now. It's 37 because I've just changed it elsewhere. I happen to have done it online, but it's irrelevant. So what I do is when I do change, I re-download just the selected record. So you can do a download all customers or download customer, just as you can do with all of these. So if I do download, we're expected to say 6837. And press that again. Re-download selected. Change. That's embarrassing. Why isn't my change working? I think I might have screwed that up in the latest build. I have. I've screwed that up. Let me try a different thing. Change. If I'd have done that with an employee, basically, if I'd have changed it elsewhere, then the latest would be would appear here, and that's because when you do a change, you should really just download the selected record, download that, re-download the record, do the changes, and do an update. And that's really just saying, I want the latest version off you, just in case it's been changed anywhere. Do the changes, and that will also prime up the group for you, which is brilliant from a validation point of view, because what it does is you've got a single entity, we'll call it employee here. So you've got a single entity, the employee group. You do a download of that employee based on its ID, 69. It brings you down it primes up the group for you. You go and change just one little bit of it, maybe the name. All the rest of it's been primed from the download. You press OK, you do your upload, and chances are, unless you've screwed up the business logic, like you're putting an invoice in there for £100 net, but the lines only add up to 72, well, you're going to get a business logic failure there because you're contradicting yourself. So unless you go out of your way to break the content, the download, changing of little bits, and the upload is by far your better option. So in the second customer, which I was on about, in that particular scenario, when we was on our general ledger example, when they press OK on the record, we download the record 14 into our group, which is use our class definitions for that for you. So for the likes of these definitions, so you can see here, LG is local group, LG bill, and it's based upon employee, actually, is what we mentioned a minute ago. Employee, and base it on our employee group. So we pass that into the download employee. That primes it up for us. We do our change and we upload. So on yours, on the OK, sorry, on that scenario, what we're saying about in the other application, on the OK of the record, we download number 14 into the group. We change some elements of the group, whatever the user's changed in the particular application, and we do the upload. The only problem you've got on that is if your connection to QuickBooks or Xero or whatever your accounting system is which you're using, if that connection can't take place, then you do potentially get the records out of sync. And at that point, you're going to have to, in your own application, come up with some kind of mechanism to say that this record hasn't been updated to the external accounting system, you're going to have to store some kind of indicator to say this still needs to be reflushed at a future point. So now you could do that on your record, maybe on your general ledger record or your customer record, and just store an indicator to say this needs to be reflushed at some point. But then you're going to have to add some kind of setup in your system to say, go and update all the basically failed records, if you will. So it really depends on how complex you want your design to be. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Personal point of view, Synchronize really does work quite well, especially if you just have it running as a service. Then you're keeping all your comms in one place, so all your Chilkat stuff and everything is all in one place, and all you're doing in your application is basically storing some information that you want to change. You want to change general ledger account description, or you want to change the balance or something like that. So that would be the better option for you. Really depends on your complexity. Okay, John Hickey, John.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Okay, you've got a question on, it's sticking with Chilkat, is it not?
Yes.
Okay, fire away.
Well, I gave you in Skype. I posted a link for you.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to work with the POP3.
Okie dokie, yeah. Now you're doing it in the raw commands. Okay.
Right.
Annoying for you. Just where's my folder? Yes. I keep saying that Wendy's been very busy, although not today, because a slight accident. But yes, we have a look at libsource, and actually they're not in there. They're on the server. But yes, basically these are two-handed Chilkat. These are what she's been working on, and as you can see, there's a whole stack of them waiting to come your way. And including we'll go straight past it. Emails there, mailman, this should be the IMAP. Basically there's a whole stack of class updates ready to go in. They do need a couple of little things doing to each one of them, which Wendy will do in another pass, if you will, and then I'll just give them the final approval, and they will go into the Chilkat wrapper. So I understand you haven't got this stuff at the moment. Before the end of February, before the training in March, I want all of the Chilkat base classes complete and released. So all of the base classes will be done and wrapped.
Cool.
So at that point, we'll bring to everyone's attention. I'll give everyone notice, but once all the base classes are wrapped, the task classes are always being added to. And they are a bonus on top, which is a very good bonus, if you ask me. The beta price will basically cease to be, and it will go to gold. But I'll give everyone at least a month's notice before that, so don't panic just yet. But the price has been on beta for probably 16 months now, something like that. So back to your question.
Back to my question. All right, so trying to retrieve mail. And I understand what all's happening here to get the messages. So if you look at the bottom there, it says email equals mailman.fetch by message number I, and email is a object, I guess.
Okay. Yep.
And so I don't know how to assign that. I don't know how to.
Okay. So it would be
that work, because they're two controls, right? So I don't know how to do it.
Right. You need to come to our training in March. Oh wait, you are coming to the training in March.
I am coming to your training in March.
Okay, well we're going to touch a tiny bit. I'll give you just so get you running here now, and we'll keep referring back to that. But I'm going to go into the Chilkat. I'm going to go into one of the task classes, okay, and try and show the same thing. So what we've got here is we've got Mailman, which is one of their base classes. Let's just go in here so we can see one of the what the base classes are. Here are all the base classes, and the buggers keep adding to them, which is great for you, but it means more work for us. But here we can see we've got Mailman. So that's one of the base classes it refers to, and it refers to an email class as well. Because we've got Mailman, and we set in some properties of that, and you've got email, and we've got some properties of that.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sure you can be more efficient, but historically, if I'm using objects, I always create them a definition of C-string 20. I haven't a clue why it's 20, because technically it's not full 20 characters, but I always have. Now, let's just go into one of the base classes, one of the task classes, I should say. We're going to go with the Quickbooks one. Anyway, CK task. Okay. Just I'll find one particular thing where it's maybe the connection or the download. Probably not a very good example of this, because I've automated a lot of this as well. This way you will need the base classes. It makes it so much easier for you. Okay, I would have to read this. Okay, you would have turn on the base class. Oh, you haven't got a base class of Mailman. Okay, no.
No, I do. I was able to turn these on, and they make the objects and stuff. I mean, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot in the classes, but it lets me do all the OCX.
You are extremely lucky
stuff.
of that if you have, because it was really an empty placeholder that I passed to Wendy. Just 1 second. Let me have a quicker look at the version that you'll have. So 1 second.
I downloaded the last one that was available.
Yep, that's okay. So you have got email. That's brilliant. So you've got your email, but they are quite empty. If I was to, let's just try to find.
Yeah, but it's linked into the common class. So
it is. Yeah, so it would. You are extremely lucky, genuinely. But that's good. That's good.
I felt lucky because I could use those things.
Yeah, well, if you have a look, that's the Mailman there. If we look at Mailman from Wendy, and it's a bit different. So you can see.
There's all the nice things right there.
Exactly. So coming soon. Back to their example. Okay, so you will have a Mailman object. Sorry, I just got the wrong button. So you can initialize. So you could set a property. So it would be whatever you called your class. Is it called Mailman? CK Mailman?
Yeah, I went with the defaults.
Yeah, CK Mailman.
The same names you give it. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So you would want for now you would want CK Mailman dot set property mail host in quotes, and you would set it to that value or whatever value your mail server is.
Okay.
You want to class name, so ckmailman dot set property pop username and set it to that, and pop password, set it to that. Okay, that's so far so good. This is a get, so you would want I would probably use, let's just give you some notes on this. Okie dokie, we'll comment that and we'll put ours in. It will be something like, I don't know what our initialize is, but we'll just put a note. Initialize Mailman base class, which is just a tick for you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
and you don't have to worry about the unlock because all that will be taken care of for you. So
Yep.
don't worry about that. That would, you'll want this afterwards. Mailman dot set property. Something like so.
Mhm.
I'm just going to do that. So that would be, you want to set that property and that property to something like this. Okay. So we've set that just like they do. We set those just like they do. We'll have a num messages long. Of course, you put that in your data section, but you get the idea.
Mhm.
We would want that to be num messages equals ck mailman dot now get mailbox count. I think that. Oh, I was going to mention that, didn't I? Mailman. Okay, that's an actual method of theirs. So it's not a property. We can't call get property because it's not a property that we can interrogate. So what you would want there, it would be OCX direct value.
Yeah.
That would get you your number of messages back. Do you get that, by the way?
Uh-huh.
Oh, very
Yeah.
good. Cool. We use iHash for that. So I'm not going to do the num. You've got the if num messages and so on and so forth. You've got all that. So here, it's going to return you a raw object. So you would want something along the lines of email object cstring 20. Okay, you'd have your for number messages. It would be email be there. Email object wants to equal. Now if we look at what they've got fetch number, fetch message, fetch by message num. Back to our help, they should have a fetch. There it is, by message num. Just watch for this being 0 based rather than 1 based, John. Quite a few of them do
Okay.
have their numbering start at 0. It's quite awkward. There's no rules on how they're done. To be honest, it's down to the developers. I find. I know in Chilkat, I can tell which components of Chilkat have been written by which developers because some of them have their numbering start at 0 and some of them start at 1. So yeah, just be careful of that one.
Okay. This looks like it starts at 1.
So brilliant. Okay, so that's going to return you an object. Okay, now we're just going to have to access that raw object for now. So that's going to bring you back. So it wants to be our ck mailman dot OCX direct value, and it wants to be basically that.
Right.
We're going to have that as iHash, just because it's going to be easier when anyone watching this back afterwards. Yep, something like so.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That will give you a thing. If you wanted to check you've got the object back, you'd want to say if the sub of email obj 1,1 is not equal to is it correct or I don't know, that character, which is
Yeah, it's that weird
yeah.
thing.
So if it's not equal to that, that's your error. Else, now this is going to want to subject. So we would want to do something along the lines of message from, and it would be CK. You're going to use the mailman for this still. So CK mailman dot get property. We're going to use the container we've got, our email object. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Dot from. We'll actually use some of their syntax here. And that would be our CK mailman dot get property. We want our email object. No, hang on a second. Yeah, get property. That ampersand dot subject. That would close that, and that will close your message off. Something along the lines of that. So what we're doing here is we're using our base class. We're getting a property, but we're actually getting a property not of the mailman object itself, but an object that has returned, which give us the object back earlier. So we're going to get a property from that particular object. That object is the shape of email. Go back to what it said. So CK email, Chilkat email. So if we look at that, there should be a load of properties, and there they are. Body, from, was there a subject, something like that? Sender, yep, subject, size, so on and so forth, usual things. So back to that code. So what we're actually doing there is we're getting a property of that raw object, ampersand, and the dot from project property of it.
Okay. I can do that.
Which is ultimately, if I was to open, this will look quite complex, but it's not. But the calendar. Let's go back onto one of the. What's it? Insert event. Okay, so you can see here what I've got inside of a calendar. This is just to explain the object type approach. We've got an object here, and I've gone to the data provider, which is part of the calendar, the CodeJot calendar, create event. That's created me an object, and then I'm going off working with that particular raw object, setting properties of it. So although I'm on the calendar class, I'm on basically another part of it, if you will, which is, and this is all you're really doing. You're just manipulating the parts of that object, and then we work with it with, I think eventually we actually do push it back into the data provider, and we add it as an event. But it's all done by this. In the QuickBooks one, an example of that, actually I've just thought of where the example would be. We go to on the download. Self.query, that's it, s.query. This is a better example. In here, I pass to it. I have a full request, no body. Okay, so all of that is what action you're doing. We're doing a get against what, and all of that, is basically the URL that we're doing a get from. And where do we want the answer? And what I do is I've already defined, this is how the mailman will work, you see. I've already defined some other objects and so on and so forth. And I've defined a response object, which is, I think it's a HTTP, it's a string builder, SB, it's a string builder object. It gives me the answer back as a string builder object, just like the mailman give you the email object back. And every one of our classes, base classes, has a get object function for you. So I'm actually passing that object in as a parameter, knowing that I will have that class all primed up, ready for me to start using. So for example, I can then start interrogating it, saying of my response object, I can now say, there's my response. Oh, I go off and pass it on to other things. But basically, I can then start interrogating methods of that class. We're just happen to be doing it raw in your example.
Right. Okay, cool. That will get me moving forward.
It will.
Right
It
there.
will. I will. When you'll be back in this week, I'll tell you what I'll do before we're in the next couple of days. There's some tidy ups to do on all of those prior to them being released. I'll do the mailman and the email as top of the list from the tidy up point of view. So the base classes of those can actually be repopulated, and you just need the classes passing to you. Rather than a full release, but they will go into the release as well for everybody else to show there's no favoritism, as John always gets accused of having many birthdays, more than the English Queen. I'll put them into the next release.
I'm waiting for my big birthday present. When
You are, yes. Although you see,
DLL, right?
We've got so much on, and it's crazy because the works that have been half done. We've done most of it on here, so. Right.
And my actual birthday is the 18th, so it'll be like
18th of March.
I won't be there on the birthday, but it'll be like 10 days before. Close. It's close.
I have to get you a cake for you over here then.
Oh, there you go.
So, any other questions? John, thanks us for the explanation on the sync. That's no problem, John. I will. The particular client in question, I will ask if, because the approach is nothing new. That approach, which I did for them, is an approach that I'd already done for other clients in the past, because it's a service. You can't really copyright an idea of writing a service. It's been done many times over. But yes, basically it was a dental system actually. It's we wanted all the communications, so this was emails, SMS, talking to the NHS, which is a national service here, with a government service for health, National Health Service, talking to the NHS, talking to our own websites for statuses. We kept all of the comms in just one application, so it could just run on its own. Of course, if it went down, all of your comms went down. But that's not a very good scenario, of course. But it did mean that we didn't have to put comms in various different parts of our application, and we could separate the tasks and keep them all in one place. So we could just go, if we knew there was an issue with emails not coming in or SMS not going out, we could just go to the synchronizer. Okay, yeah, that's got an issue, and so on and so forth. But to be honest, if you they can be really resilient. I mean, we had ours running, they are weeks and months on end, and they just run. We put some debugging in there, so it would write out to text files, and we could have applications check if certain statuses had been raised and so on, and check it was still running and so on. There's tricks and tips that you can do like that, but a couple of times now we've had it where we've had a separate little application running on its own, and that handles all the particular types of tasks, and it does work well, to be fair. This depends on the complexity of your requirements, of course. Okay, there's no other questions, and I could do with finishing a little earlier. So if there are no other questions, we shall start wrapping it up. John, try those. Do you want me to send you that on Skype? Is that what we've just done there?
I think I got it. I kind of typed it in as you were going, so I think we're good. I'm good.
I thought I could hear the old keyboard going as I was
typing it right in there.
Yep. So yeah, but that's the main thing. Yeah, the main thing is you get your object. You can check it by just checking that first character. If you've got that, as long as you've got that, then you have got the object returned, which means you can get to the properties. They might not be set, but that could be for any number of reasons, an incorrect login and password or so on and so forth.
Right.
You could, the mailman actually probably does give you, there's a mailman. Does that have any properties to say you've been connected and so on and so forth?
It does. Really.
It does, yeah. So you could do the get property on that and start interrogating. Have you got a successful connection, and the connection timeout you might want to set in advance to your connection, those types of things. Out there is properly connected. and is SMTP connected. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, the base class, we'll get them in there. Of course, the next thing will be people will when can I have the example app? It's taking longer to create examples, you can imagine, than it is to do some of the base apps. But as long as we can get all the base apps wrapped, that'll be the main thing that I'll want to start with, I've got to admit. Right, okay. Until next week, hopefully you found it of interest and you like what's coming, especially the time status on the calendar. I think that I know it's a requirement because it's been a requirement in quite a few of our solutions. Anyone who's using the calendar with multiple staff and so on and so forth, then you will have different working shifts and patterns and rosters and rotas. So that'll be a nice addition to that. So next week we should really be looking at that done. Oh, sorry, I've just got one quick one of Scott. Any word on the HTML viewer editor? Scott, let's open the microphone. We've got a microphone available.
Yeah, hi Andy.
Hi Scott.
I thought I saw on the website that you're coming out with HTML tools.
The HTML, yes. Just let me. Where are we? Where are we? Do you know what? I'll just go on here. There you go. You've got, if you want an HTML viewer, then part of the CodeJock suite does have a viewer in it. It's actually part of that there. The controls has a multitude of different parts in it, actually. One part is the HTML viewer. In fact, just to show an example, although we've not done the content yet, but what we've done is on the browsers is allow them to have the help, not that, sorry, the help in here, so we can turn the help on and off. So we've got some here and off, and if I went on to a record, we can turn the help on there. But this is actually a HTML viewer, so that's actually the HTML text. So that is part of that CodeJock controls, and you can prime. Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, what about an editor so I
Okay.
can give my client a WYSIWYG and they can, do whatever they want to do.
You can.
And then,
That comes under NBit. So we've not really done much with the viewer. That's been coming soon for a long time because I should really do it, actually. I should really just put the viewer, but you've already got other viewers in there. The editor in read-only mode is a viewer. And if you've got the CodeJock suite, you've got a viewer in there as well. So that's why time really wasn't put into that one. But the editor's there. The editor's been available for a number of years now, to be honest. And I should be able to. S masters. Examples, HTML. Yeah, if we have a look at this. Just let Avast antivirus kill my machine a second. Won't be a minute. There we go. Okay. So yes, you can use it as just a viewer, e.g. Like so. Hang on, that's not the that control's not registered. Oh, I'm on my new machine. Just let me quickly go to that one. Won't be a second. Crikey, that still can't be running. Masters, examples, HTML. Okay, so yeah, hopefully a viewer. Yeah, Noyantis, and yeah, ultimately it's a web viewer, as you can see. So that's the editor in read-only mode. But I take it you can see this, by the way.
Yes.
Yes, I just thought then because I've jumped onto an RDP, and then the editor is a WYSIWYG. So we can type in this is a test. Maybe this is I've got no license in that. This is old.
Excellent. How clean is the generated HTML code, do you think?
Well, we only want the inner. So there's what we've got there, so we can see it's got a break in there. Now it's strong. You can put CSS on there if you want.
Right. And it's formatted well?
Yeah.
I was wondering how was it formatted as well, because we have another one and it just jams everything together and it takes a lot of work to do it and stuff like that, right?
No, I mean do you say you're going to use it some kind of editor with it?
Yes.
Well, you can see one of the examples I have here, and I just did it to demonstrate tokens. Very crude, but it does. The idea is it works. So we can see I set up I want a logo, and I did this so long ago. But yes, you've got some wording here and some tokens. So we could say to, and I don't know whether there is a place to say, okay, insert customer URL. Let's put that in. Insert after selection. So there you go. So I'll save that newsletter. Very crude. And then we'll just basically proofread it with some demo data. So we can see here, there's to Chilkat software, to Noyantis. And all that's really doing is loading in our newsletter in the HTML, which is just stored locally, by the way, in a .html file and so on. But you don't have to. You can store it in a blob. You can store it. It's only HTML, so you can store it in anything you like. Memo. And then the class includes find replace. So it's just doing a very crude find that token and replace it with whatever we need to replace.
Great. Thank you.
So yeah, but that's available. It's been a while. It's got some other tools in there like FTP. I don't particularly see the point, but it's got it in should you need it, and so on. But the main things for me is I use it for creating email mergers, that type of thing.
Cool. Thank you, Andy.
No problem.
I'll send you an email.
Yes, by all means. Yep, fire it. Yep. Just drop it to us, and we can sort it out accordingly. No problem.
Thanks.
Okie dokie. So I think we are done. Hopefully it's been an enjoyment to everybody. Until next week. Cheers. Oh, and don't forget, if anyone's interested in the training, I've got to plug it. It's the 7th, because time is pressing on. Our event, online and in the UK, should you be local, 7th and 8th of March. So Thursday the 7th and Friday the 8th of March, we're holding our training. 2-day training workshop. It's in Nottinghamshire, UK. Good transport links, quite central, quite easy to get to. But you can also attend online as well. So you've got all the recordings and so on. So any information you want on that, by all means, feel free to drop us a message. Okay, until next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, Andy. Bye, everyone.